Let's paint a picture. You're walking down the road and you see someone harassing a woman. What do? Your impulse to respond to this question might be to say, I would go and confront the harasser. But what if we told you that while your intention is in the right place, you are most likely to not follow up on that intent with an action? We learnt in the last video how common sexual harassment is in spaces around us and how the Me Too movement helped us identify patterns of support or of victim blaming put forth by people. While the society is getting towards the root of this evil, there is also a sort of binary understanding of reporting an instance of sexual harassment. We tend to see it as a matter of black and white, whereas a lot of decision making happens in the grey area. Going back to the question asked in the last video, how would you react if you encountered sexual harassment? If we ask this question to ourselves, we realize that our responses are highly driven by anger, and we don't often take in consideration the situational factors that might surround us, or our thought process in that very moment. However, other than the effective forecasting error or the sense making process, there are many other factors that might influence an individual's choice of action when faced with harassment. Each individual is complex in nature, with a variety of traits, all subjective in nature, which in turn affects their decision making patterns across situations. Multiple variables like gender, agreeableness, narcissism, and moral foundations affect reporting. Let's first take a look at the factors that might influence an individual's choice for action. First, observers are more likely to intend to report an instance of sexual harassment than to actually report sexual harassment. There is a difference between intending to report an incident and actually reporting an incident. Research shows that people are more likely to have the intention, but very few of those intentions are actually ever converted into action. We all know that each of our actions have consequences. On witnessing an instance of sexual harassment, one might think about reporting it and also become instantly afraid of the possible consequences. They might fear becoming the whistleblower or having to face the retaliation of higher authorities. Research suggests that people act and react more when taking action is socially acceptable. That means, if an observer happens to witness such an instance in an environment where the safety of whistleblowers is ensured and individuals are even encouraged to report such incidents, chances of observer intervention would be higher. Research shows that people are more likely to predict that they would take action against a harasser if they ever witnessed an instance of sexual harassment. However, statistics show people fail to follow up on that intent. A campus survey including over 150,000 students was conducted in 2015. It was found that almost 1 out of every 5 students had been a witness to someone acting in a sexually violent or harassing manner. What is interesting is that only 18% intervened. 82% of the witnesses did not try to stop the behavior. Second, moral courage trait. What would you say if I told you we have a particular personality trait that guides decisions we make based on our morals? We do, in fact, have a literal moral compass inside of us. People with a very high moral courage as a personality trait tend to stand up against injustices more often than people who do not have a high moral courage. Moral courage is not just about having morals or beliefs, but instead it includes the courage factor that allows the individuals to always fight for their morals as well. So, why is it that some people fail to act on their morally courageous intent to report sexual harassment? According to research, an integrative model of moral courage can be used to follow up on as to why some people engage in morally courageous behavior, whereas others are silent or passive. This model encompasses 5 main points. 1. Detection of the situation. Second, interpreting the situation as a norm violation. Third, accepting one's own responsibility in situation. Fourth, perceiving subjective intervention skills. And fifth, action by weighing cost and benefits. This model helps to identify various individual traits and variables underlying the decision making process. Third, observers' narcissism will be negatively related with the behaviors opposing sexual harassment. As we talked about the behavioral traits of the observer above as antecedents of reporting, We realize how observers high on narcissism might fail to recognize an instance of sexual harassment. Let's understand what narcissistic traits are. First, the person believes that they are uniquely special. Second, there is an inflated self ego. Third, there is an expectation of special treatment from others and a lack of empathy. Fourth, there's a sense of entitlement. Narcissistic traits mold an individual's personality in such a manner that it leads the observer to not consider the survivor of sexual harassment worthy of their time or energy. Their initial response is to simply blame the survivor by hinting towards how the survivor provoked the harasser or how they brought this upon themselves. However, in case the narcissist believes reporting or intervening in an incident of sexual harassment would help their social status or reward their ego in some way, they would be more likely to intervene. Fourth, female observers are more likely to report sexual harassment than male observers. Do you think that gender identity relations between the survivor and the observer would have any influence over the observer's intention to intervene? Research suggests that women are more likely to identify and point out an instance of sexual harassment than men. However, the difference in numbers is less. People resonate more with who they know and are more likely to be aware of things affecting one of their own. Being able to identify quickly with the survivor generates instant empathy within the observers. Because all women are more likely to experience sexual harassment at some or the other time in their life, they tend to notice it happening to someone else easily and also intervene. Thus, not only women, but any individual who might have experienced a similar situation in their life is far more likely to intervene in an incident of sexual harassment than someone who never has. Fifth, multiple opportunities as signals to act. It is theorized that it may take multiple and different opportunities to report an instance of sexual harassment. There are multiple steps involved. Understanding the emphasis that is laid on detecting a situation, perceiving a norm violation, doing the cause benefit analysis or reporting, and knowing what to do in the morally courageous process. We're sure that all of us today have learned about the perspective of the observer in an event of sexual harassment and had revelations about our own behavioral patterns as well. Anyway, it would be unfair to expect an immediate change in our responses and our traits, and there will still be people who respond actively or passively. But why is it that some people are passive when it comes to speaking up? Find out in the next video.